The federal government and the organized labor have agreed on a new minimum wage of 70,000 naira after months of deliberation. The president also promised to review the national minimum wage law every 3 years. A minimum wage is the lowest remuneration that employers can legally pay their employees at the end of an agreed period of time. Welcome to another episode of Nigeria Today, a weekday program that discusses current and trending issues of the day. I am Eucharia Clinton, and thanks for joining us. Now, joining us to discuss the new national minimum wage is Wale Smart Oyeride, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, representative of the private sector in the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Also with us in the studio is Dr. Makolo Hassan, who's a member NLC National Executive Council and member NLC Central Working Committee. He's also the national president of NASU. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
It is my pleasure.
Dr. Hassan, I saw the way you're looking at me. What's your reaction? There's been announcement of a new minimum wage.
Well, it has come a long way. We have been agitating so much that people gave us names within the labor cycle, looking at us as opposition, not knowing that we were working with the reality, economic reality of the time. And now we have come to where we are now. We gave our leaders the mandate at least to negotiate with consideration. Of course, what we have today is not a celebration, but it's fair, especially given the fact that instead of 5 years of review, it's now reduced to 3 years. It means that in the next 3 years, we'll go back to table again, maybe without too much agitations. Otherwise, the 70,000 naira we are still talking is a little bit lower than one bag of rice.
Now, over to you, Wale Smart Oyeride. You are of the private sector. I understand during the deliberation. I know where you stand. Stand. Now, how would you react to this announcement of 70,000 naira minimum wage?
Well, first, let's congratulate the president for seemingly putting an end to the agitation, to the conversation that started on the 30th of January when the committee was inaugurated. And the committee did a yeoman's job. It was tough, it was tension-soaked, and we were able to come up with that, with the figure that we recommended, 62,000. Our colleagues in Labour also had their figure, which ended at 250,000. And as the doctor said, it was based on realities. Labour expressed its reality within its context, which was valid. The private sector also expressed its realities as per 62,000, which was valid, looking at the multifaceted challenges that we currently face. And even in the midst of the conversation as we are negotiating the minimum wage, we also had another sword of Damocles smashed on organized businesses with the increase in tariff of electricity. So those conditions altogether continue to squeeze organized businesses. And those are the reasons why we arrived at the figure that we proposed. But fortunately, the president, while announcing the 70,000, which is within the context of his right, we have to make recommendation, and the president is to approve a figure. We're also glad that he made the comment that he will support the private sector and the subnationals to pay the amount. It's one thing for us to announce a figure, then a key component that we cannot run away from is the ability to pay. If you don't address those multifaceted issues surrounding ability to pay, surrounding ease of doing business, then we'll have just postponed, we'll have created a different type of challenge for ourselves. But kudos to the president. We commend his leadership for announcing that figure, and we look forward earnestly to the rollout of those supports. We need those supports definitively. The support is going to give organized businesses. Suffice to say that before the committee closed, the tripartite committee, there were I won't call them agreements, but understanding that was reached with government that, look, government should consider doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for organized businesses, so that it positions organized business to pay. If not, you create problem with compliance. And while you will have dealt with the issue of the figure here, then you will have created a problem for those to enforce compliance, and you have also created some level of problem for the courts, for the National Industrial Court, because everybody that is aggrieved is supposed to go to the National Industrial Court. And you don't want a proliferation of cases of arising from issue of compliance. But kudos to the government for announcing the 70,000. We'll continue to partner, we'll continue to cooperate, and we'll continue to talk with our colleagues in labor, so that the realities, consistently, we're all on the same page on those realities.
Okay, now back to you, Dr. Hassan. The agreement is expected to be transmitted to the National Assembly to make it legally binding on all parties. Can you shed more light on this?
Yes, of course, it is a process, and that is the procedure. He has announced, but it will not stop there. You know, it's a law. Minimum wage is a law. So for it to take effect, it has to go to the National Assembly. And once it is, the business is done from there, then we'll begin to open our hands again and say it has to take, supposed to take effect from May 1st. So just like my friend here said, now we have now proposed and we have now accepted, between the two parties, 62, 250. You can see the gap. That is to tell you that our leaders within the labor, they equally understand what the country is passing through. So having come to this understanding, we will not want to hear tomorrow that some segments are not able to pay. We have situation on our hands. And as we talk today, some governors cannot pay 30,000 minimum wage. Some workers are taking 20,000 in a state. And once you are paid that 20 or even 15, they will tell you that month they are not owing you. Workers are suffering, and we cannot continue in this manner any longer. So if we have decided to come down from the benchmark of 250 to 70, then it is because we want it to be on a level ground that every segment will be able to pay, so that workers can manage. It's not a living wage, but the workers can manage.
Okay, now I still want to go back to that issue of non-compliance. You talked about some states not being able to, adhere to the 30,000. What do you think they should do? Government should do more to ensure that the state governments adhere to these agreements.
Of course, with the coming into power of the current president, the state have no reason to complain, because what they are drawing from the federation account is enormous. They have enough. It's not just all about taking this money and do sharing formula. You used to do it for the welfare of your people. You see, it is easy for all of us to sit down here and say, Mr. President is not doing well. What are the governors doing at that level? Because we must feel the impact of every segment in the government. And thank God again for the autonomy of the local government. So the people should be able to hold their chairman accountable. The chairman and co should be able to hold their governors accountable like that before we even come to the presidency. So while the federal workers will be looking on to the federal government for effective payment system, we look on to the governors, at least to do the needful. The allocation is not meant for you to conserve those who want to go for second tenure. You want to hide them in billions so that you can campaign. No, use it for the welfare of the people.
Now, back to you, Smart. What is the implication of the agreement on both parties? Now we're talking about what's the implication of non-adherence to this?
The law itself, the National Minimum Wage Act, it contains about 5 segments, and 2 has just been addressed. The first part is the figure itself, which the President has mentioned. The second part is the duration, which we've also addressed. And suffice to say, the private sector was also disposed to a reduction from the 5 years. Our proposal at the committee level was about 4 years, because negotiation also go on in some sectors every year, in some sectors every 2 years, in some sectors every 3 years. Now that we have crashed it to 3 years, it means in some sectors they'll be going through 2 different negotiations within the same period, which can be very cumbersome. But I think at the sectoral level, those issues can be addressed. Now, there is a third part, that is the exceptions. Who are those to be exempted? We canvass for SMEs. The SMEs in this environment, they are the engine of development basically, but they are the most struggling form of group of businesses. That SMEs with a number of employees should be exempted from this context. The fourth part is the compliance and enforcement. So this is 4 compliance, enforcement, and then the 5th part is the penalties for non-compliance. So the president have addressed 2. So the remaining 3 apparently will address it when the bill gets to the National Assembly. But the implication is this for us. So the whole concept of the national minimum wage is this: you don't set it too low, because if you set it too low, you perpetuate poverty. Now you don't set it too high, because if you set it too high, you have built ground for non-compliance. But wage, the way it is, people don't consume wage. If you have 100 naira, you don't eat it. You buy goods. And for us in the private sector, while we support the context of sufficient wage, good living wage, we're also conscious to make sure that it doesn't become burdensome on us. So with the current figure, we'll go back, we are consulting at the organized private sector level as I speak to you, to look at what are the implications and come up with a position that will be agreeable in the context of how do we implement successfully, and how do we partner with labor to also reduce the issue of non-compliance. For us, we're a very responsible group that is desirous of our workers, our employees, living a good life. So all those conversations that are going on currently to make sure that we have a successful implementation of the current minimum wage. If it's implemented well, the cash that will be paid will flow back into the production circle. Because the more cash people have in their hands, the more sugar, the more rice, the more products they can buy. And the more they buy, it enhances the ability of the business to produce more. And once business can produce more, people can buy more, it expands your ability to expand the business, to create jobs, social investment. So it's an interesting pot of soup if you get the condiment very well.
Okay, thank you. I like the sound of soup. Okay, now we'll take a short break now and listen to some Nigerians on the announcement by the federal government on the new minimum wage. Don't go away.
70,000 naira, it cannot even pay their transport to service their work. Talk less of them feeding themselves. Therefore, government should do the needful so that whatever thing they pay to this civil servant, it will be enough for them to take care of themselves and take care of their family and take care of those they are taking care of.
Considering the going back and forth with the labor and the government, well, definitely they must reach a consensus, and this is the consensus. But it's not even about the 70,000. It's about keeping to their word and making things right. Like in some states, you still see some states defaulting in it. But I just believe things will go for the best.
Plead with the president to jack up a little. 70,000 is not enough. A little more.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and of course we're looking at the new minimum wages announced by the federal government. And I have with me here in the studio 2 gentlemen. Now, Dr. Hassan, you had the reaction of the people there. Yes. So what would you say?
Yes, of course. I've told us that the labor leaders, they have to bend low at a particular time. So that people will not continue to give us name as if there are forces, as if there are people who are pushing us, not knowing that it is the economic reality that is pushing just like these young people, they made comment. And like I said before, the 70,000 is still a little bit lower than one bag of rice. So a family of 4 with a wife and the husband, they are already 6. If you buy that, it means you are not talking of payment of other bills. The school fee is there, and you have to contend with medical bills. But for now, because in the next 3 years, we'll look at it again. But most importantly, like my colleague here said, it's not about the 70,000. If the prices of things will come down. Now, of course, if the economic is stable, I will tell you that the labor has done so well because the negotiation has given us more than 100% of increment. But it is not enough because of the reality of the time. And we are praying that things stabilizes. So that because for those of us who buy ordinary gari, did you know how much they sell 1 cup of gari now? And you have to transport to the office and do a lot of other things. So we'll manage it for now. Like us in the labor cycle, tomorrow we'll have meeting by 11 o'clock. We are going to present it to the larger house and say this is how far we have come.
Now, before I let you off the hook, now I just want to get one clarification.
Yes.
Did the National Working Committee of the NLC and TUC ratify the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira?
Yeah, that is what, of course, we mandated our leaders to go and negotiate in good faith. The outcome today is 70. So by 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, the National Executive Council is going to meet and will now inform us officially, not what we heard from the news, that this is what we've been able to bring to table. That is it.
Okay, thank you. Now back to you, Mr. Oyerinde. Now, Nigerians, you know, from all sectors have been looking forward to this agreement. And, you know, now it has been reached. Now, how will this shape the activities in Nigeria?
You know, I think the fundamental part of this whole conversation, as he alluded to, is really less of the figure. It is more of this whole process is driven by the macroeconomic situation. If you have 30,000 and you can sufficiently, and the old indices, economic indices, the price of goods and services is okay, and the naira is strong, you realize the 30,000 can actually do much more than 100,000 if the situation is quite bad. So what we have counseled is this: the government should do much more within the context of the economic situation. Businesses are currently faced with high interest rates. So if I borrow at 10% when the interest rate was 15%, and within 1 year interest rate moves to 25%, it creates big problem for the business. And those costs we have to be passed. Somebody have to bear the cost. The business will not bear it in total, so it goes back to the consumer. So progressively, the quantum or the volume or the value of each naira that the household or the worker will have will continue to go down. So everything is driven by the economic situation. And that's why we've urged government to do the needful. Inflation must come down. The forex, the exchange rate must come down. Regulatory environment must be more friendly. The proliferation of taxes and levies should stop, because those are the things that negates the values, you know, because on the long run, those challenges, they are passed down to somebody, unfortunately. So those are the critical issues for the organized private sector, or except you run a business in this environment. You know, when we say businesses are paying over 60 different taxes, levies, and fees, both legal and illegal. Thank God for the president's inauguration about last year of the Presidential Committee on Tax and Fiscal Policy Reforms, led by Taiwo Oyedele. We're hoping that the outcome of that committee's work will also be adopted or accepted by the president, and the start implementation of those policies. We hope that the exorbitant tariff, increase in tariff for power, we also go, because most businesses, you know, fall on band A areas, and it's exorbitant. You know, if power becomes a major challenge for you as a business. So government should look at all those issues, expeditiously address the support that the president has promised. We are emphasizing it. Government should expeditiously announce those support, and then we move on from this conversation about the minimum wage to actual implementation, especially those issues I've mentioned that was not captured by the president on the issue of exceptions for the SMEs and MSMEs, because they are facing a lot of threat. We have the conversation about the enforcement and then the penalties. The committee has done a good work and passed its recommendation to the president, and we hope at the National Assembly during the public hearing, this conversation will continue.
Okay. Now, Dr. Hassan, the negotiations have come, and I would say they have gone.
Okay.
On this program, quite a lot of some professionals have come to say, okay, let's Labour look beyond just asking for increment in salary. They should also look at other factors. Now, beyond this announcement, what does Labour intend to do?
Yes, the announcement is here, and to us in the Labour circle, we do things in stages. Now, like I tell you, we have had the announcement today. We will be on the table tomorrow by 11. We'll appraise, look at what our leaders have done, and we will be able to profile, to tell the government what and what to be done. But he has started very well, because the level, the potency of our currency matters a lot. We'll advise the government, if we're able to stabilize the potency of Naira. If you travel out now, then you see how watery our money has become. We're talking of 70,000 here. You go to some countries, 1 meal will be 40,000 if you translate it. So we are looking at it in a way that we'll be able, at our own level, to be able to advise government. The problem we have in this country is that you may decide to advise. People will not take you serious until it degenerates into a struggle and will start running helter-skelter. At Labour level, we will be advising as appropriate, so that if the government will do the needful and price of things stabilizes, our currency stabilizes, then in the next 3 years, we'll just go there and just do little party, and we are out of it.
So we are hoping that it will not degenerate or anything. We will keep getting better, because we have a listening president.
Absolutely.
He listens to the people, and of course, in the shortest possible time, we'll all smile and tell the story.
So.
Now, with that, we'll wrap up today's episode of Nigeria Today. Very big thank you to my guest. I had with me the Wale Smart Oyeride. He's Nigeria Employers Consultative Association representative of the private sector in the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. And also we had Dr. Makolo Hassan, member NLC National Executive Council and member NLC Central Working Committee, and also the national president of NASU. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, thank you for your understanding. And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for watching. I am your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.